August the 13th, 2024. I am chairing the meeting tonight because Mary is coming off of a spell. She is here, but saving her voice a little bit. Is there anyone in the public to add anything to the agenda tonight? No. Okay, excellent. So we will proceed as it is posted. Before we get started, I'd like to just make a quick statement regarding the passage of June Cooper. I've been working to stay apprised as much as possible of everything that's going on. Right now, it is under investigation, so we can't really speak much on it, but the trustees in the village extend our sincerest sadness for the family that lost their daughter at Lake Perrin a couple of weeks ago. They have been nothing but gracious and shown gratitude for all of the first responders, all of the police that have been working hard. And our thoughts are with them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
And we'll know more eventually, but right now it's all under investigation, so it's not public. Next, 7:05, the review and approve the minutes of Tuesday, July 9th and Tuesday, August 6th. So let's start with July 9th. Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did anyone have any adjustments to them?
Are you talking about August 6th? Yeah.
Nope, the other one, July 9.
Well, so,
Okay. Did you notice anything that we needed to adjust?
There was nothing changed since they were sent out the first time.
Okay. So can I get a motion?
I will motion to accept.
Thank you. That's Mary
Second.
and Scott. All further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining because I didn't get to see them. I didn't get them. Yeah.
Okay. One abstention. Matthew, were you an aye?
I'm an aye. Yes, indeed.
His box lit up. I'm assuming that's a yes.
Matt, I think you might be muted, maybe.
He's not though.
Let's see here.
Is that? We haven't heard from anyone. Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then let's do Tuesday, August 6th. This one I will have to abstain because I was not there.
That was the Wellingfield
Correct.
one, yes, right.
Okay,
I'll make a motion.
perfect. Ray moves and a second.
Second,
And for the discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
aye.
Okay, and I'm an abstention. Matthew is a yes. Okay. Review the monthly warrant and approve payment of bills.
Okay.
There she is.
Oh, now we can hear you. And we can see Lori.
Oh, good.
Okay. Lori, do you want to take over minutes? Mary has what we had up until this point. It was only just the approval of the minutes so far.
And the first, and the attendees.
And the attendees.
Yes, that'd be great. And, yes, I'm ready.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll start with the payroll warrant. We are going to do two payroll warrants because I guess I must have sent the wrong one when I wasn't at the meeting last month. So we will reapprove the correct July payroll, which is in the amount of $10,924.40. Nothing out of the ordinary on that one. So that is the payroll from the month of June that gets approved in July. So unless there's any questions, we'll take a motion for the corrected July payroll warrant.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Yep.
Are we gonna sign your copies?
We can, I have them all right here.
Okay.
So next is the August payroll, which covers the month of July. and that is in the amount of $9,119.09. And again, nothing out of the ordinary, standard 2 payroll period. So unless there's any other questions,
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
okay. All right, so I did separate the late July and the August warrant just because there was
Why didn't you handle it?
just a number. There wasn't, would have been too much to put on one sheet, basically. So the late July warrant is in the amount of $26,964.57. I did send out the detail report. If anybody has any questions, I don't have it right in front of me, but I can certainly pull it up and answer any questions. And if it's highway, Norm can answer any questions also. So if there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, looking for a motion for the late July warrant.
Contact was what?
I'm
6,003.
looking for it on my.
That
thing, too.
one, Norm,
What is it?
That's a pipe
A pipe.
for,
Oh,
grant on Welling Road.
That's
the Welling Road.
Okay.
Yep. So
Thank you.
that'll be part of reimbursement request once the project is done.
Excellent, thank you.
Which one was that?
Contact the
Contact.
6,320.
And that's the pipe that goes under the road?
Yes.
And what's the dimension again?
54 by 48 inches.
Oh, huge.
It's big, it's nothing like the last one.
No, but for that road, that's quite large.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
just in case anyone's interested, the Bowden paving on that same late July warrant also is that project.
Okay.
Further discussion? Seeing none, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Ray, and second,
Second.
Scott, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Next.
Okay. Next, we are on the August warrant, and that is in the amount of $34,506. And the two largest items on there, Norm can talk about their highway equipment. One was a stump grinder. Was that the Finnick or the C&W? Fink, sorry.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a flock or something. Yeah. Oh, think.
Fink, yeah.
Yep.
Or Finky.
Then there was also
Could
the
be either way.
lift and
The lift,
the
yep.
bucket, the special bucket.
Yep, so those were the two large items. Everything else,
Should be three.
um,
Yeah, probably one from Cat.
Cat was on the last one.
Oh,
yeah,
I missed
that was on in
sorry.
July. Yep.
That's it from the
Yeah.
stuff that we have,
Yeah.
sold and surplus property that for this. So, that was our, which was our goal.
What's the C&W trans?
C&W Trans is trucking. We bought a 42-foot boom lift at a government surplus.
Okay,
And
yeah. You mentioned that before.
so we can do this building upper, because, you know, we gotta, listen, here's the deal, it's $5,000 to rent one of those things.
Yep.
For a couple weeks.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Or
Well, we got
$5,000 to
10
buy
into it.
one.
After we're done for a month, we own this thing, we own it now, so.
Right.
You know,
No, I think that's a
Yeah,
very good
that's a great.
purchase.
you know, our painters can use it, you know what I mean, and, you know, there's other things around town that can use it. And,
Okay. That surplus is really paying off for us.
yeah, it's not a lifetime piece of equipment, you know what I mean, it's a 2002, it is what it is, but, you know, you're fortunate enough to have a trained monkey in this payroll that fixes stuff, and, you know, and when we're done with it, we'll sell it and make money.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, a motion?
I like it.
Ray has taken it, and the second
Second.
from Scott, and all in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you. Okay.
All right, that's, I think that's it for my piece right now.
That
Or did
is-
we jump right in? I don't think we jumped right in.
Oh, I have to go back. Hold on. It's here.
Next.
Yep, now we've got highway.
All right, so, we went over a couple things that, when I was over, I had to help Matt for a minute. Sure. We pretty much completed our sidewalk, we gotta go back and fix the grass, but some truckers are running over it, and it's kind of bugging us, but, you know, it's growing, it's getting a little high, but we gotta let it get strong before we can start cutting it. Sidewalk, we've got nothing but compliments on it. We met with a resident and we talked about doing something on the other side of the street where people park, and we're painting a crosswalk. Kind of like the one in front of the firehouse, big long stretch, just kind of define an area, see how people get used to that, you know. In sooner or later years, we want to expand and keep going with our sidewalk cut through the curb. So we'll run that for a couple of years. So that project's pretty much wrapped up. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know if you've been out in some of our crazy rainstorms and seeing the water take. It's actually, it's been atrocious, but it never went over the sidewalk. The little drains are doing exactly what you're supposed to do. And if you go to the other end in front of Homestead Views, and there still needs some work there, but it shoots it out like a jet engine out into the parking lot. So that's really good, like it's supposed to. So we're good there. Go around the corner, we have laid out, I encourage each of you in the next couple days to take a walk on Church Street, and you'll see some orange paint. It's really hard to see, because we didn't want to really be affecting the neighbors too awful bad, but you can look, and, you know, before they mow their lawns, and see where a sidewalk will be laid out there. You know, whether we decide to go for it, there was a sidewalk there at one time in existence, it was all blacktop, it grew up. And I spent more time fixing people's lawns in the spring, and, you know, if we're gonna build a sidewalk, we'll build one. And if we're not, we're gonna leave it the way it is. That project could be done a couple different ways. It's far enough back where you could just put a sidewalk in without any curbing, because you'll have that 2-foot buffer space. The problem is that everybody keeps parking over it. That sidewalk really needs curbing. It needs to be the same kind of job that was done up here on School Street. You know, would be good to get it dug out, and you get that monolithic guy to come in and pour concrete curb to the machine, and, you know, fix all the garbage and do it. We are running out of time in this construction season. But
Was that earmarked for this year?
it was a wish. What was earmarked for this year was that other sidewalk. That's a big nut, you know, obviously, it's a budget and stuff like that.
But when we talk about this year, the current year we're in, what that sidewalk was in the other year,
Other fiscal year.
the other fiscal.
I was just
So we-
wondering what the timeline was for getting the work done,
Doing
so like,
something is a potential for this year.
This physical,
This-
Yeah.
so that's like first thing in the spring.
Right.
This is what we do. But there's, you know, deep research and some other things, some legal stuff that we gotta do on that, not a whole lot, because we're in our way.
when do we have to make that decision by?
Well, I'm gonna ask for a continuance of this meeting.
Okay.
For a couple other things, and, you know, we really like to talk about that at the same time.
Okay.
You know, whether we can then come back out of the executive session, and then go into a public session, and then you can talk about that, but you gotta get your eyes on it. You know, I can explain it to you all day long, you're gonna believe me or not, you go look at it. All but one neighbor is ecstatic about it, you know, and one neighbor just sits there and goes, because if we don't put curb in, he's gonna move his fence, he ain't happy about moving his fence, he wants curb.
Okay.
Right, so that,
And your recommendation is curb?
yes, if you look at that street and you'll see it all mangled up, and that street is curb.
Okay.
So
But his fence gets to stay if we put curb in?
his fence gets to stay. It might have to get removed for construction, so I don't hit it, because it's a really nice fence. But his fence can stay.
Got it.
Fence can stay where it is.
But Norm's gonna talk about a couple of other things that trustees are gonna have to weigh in on too.
Okay,
That's on Church Street.
yes.
That is on Church Street between Bank and the school.
Right.
Okay? So if we continue down, we'll just do our chain of path. And I encourage you, all finding this week, right? in the laws, you can't get together, get two of you together, I don't care. We gotta go down on the bottom of Park Street, and I'll explain what happens with the water that comes out and goes all the way down in the back of Water Street. Now, I don't know what you were doing Christmas Day, but I know what I was doing Christmas Day. Hey, I was signing the sidewalks with all the water pouring out of the bank. Okay, and, you know, 2-3 hours every day, 2-3 times every day for Christmas through the second week in January. You know, it's kind of a pain. We gotta fix that water problem. The fix of that water problem is jackhammering out the ledge and continuing that ditch down Park Street. So if you were walking from Cullen Mansion to the Henry Bridge, it will be on the right side of Park Street, okay? Coming out and continuing that ditch down, going across, the lower property, where the guy used to work for the bank, take all the pictures. There's a driveway right there that was allowed to be put in up on the top without a culvert. That driveway will need a culvert. And I would say we'll put it in, and then the water will continue down the street. That brings us to the next grant. The next grant is to actually change the culverts at the bottom of River Road. Okay, where all that water would end up going. It would probably dissipate in the land from what it has to run between there. But down at the bottom, and we're getting hydraulic study on that. It's a 2-footer in there now, we'll probably go to a 3. I mean, everything you've seen, all the storms, everything's getting bigger. And that's, we already have a grant secured for that. We're pretty sure we're gonna get a continuance. And then there's actually 2 pipes right there that we would change.
Where does it come down into Water Street off of Park? Because like Ron has his that goes out of my property into his and then
No,
goes
so you're way down.
way down that way. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're talking about trenching on the right side of the road all the way down?
That is correct. You know where
Okay.
Hollis Hills house used to be? Sunny Monroe?
No.
Yes,
Okay, so just below John's house,
Okay.
on the other side of the street, now again, there's water that pumps out of there. He's got some pumps running all day, full. There's a piece of property next to him in Sunny Monroe, I believe that's his, that floods constantly, correct? Right, when we have these big rains and so that would hopefully relieve some of the pressure.
Okay, I think it's a great idea, because I know the stuff that comes off of my hill goes into Pembroke's
Yes.
fields, and
And-
there's
and
been a lot.
Where does it exit at the end of Park Street? There's a culvert?
You gotta take the tour, because it's a long process.
Well, I
Because
walked
you have
that
to put a
stretch.
culvert in
So it
across.
comes across from Sunny Monroe's, there's a pipe that goes across the street, we would replace that.
Okay,
And we would continue the ditch at the same level, so some of the water's gonna go where it naturally goes, and some of the water's gonna keep going straight, because we can't flood out everything. In our right of way, here's the key to this, in our right of way, which we are allowed to work in. We go through, and there's a little hump where it goes down, and just jackhammer that out, then it goes into the first field, we would put a pipe across the driveway, and then I would suggest that we leave it and see how it works. If the water just goes and dissipates into that lower grassland and just disappears, all the better, right? Because it's gonna head up to the Henry Bridge anyway. If the homeowner really wants a ditch line down through there, then, you know, we've talked about widening that little lower stretch of that road and putting in a proper ditch forever. You know, cutting some trees, and that, again, this would be a multiple, month or, you know, one piece this year, one piece next year project. But
so the ditch is on the west side of the Park Street.
that
Yes.
is correct.
You really do have to see it, and it probably does deserve a continuance of this meeting, that the trustees, however many of us can do it, we've done it at Hall Street. We go and look physically at these projects, along with perhaps the other homeowners on the road would like to look at it too.
I mean,
It takes more than can be described in words.
I ride down that on
Yes,
horses,
you
so
must.
I get to stare at all those ditches, and I know where it kind of,
And in the
Builds up.
winter time, Norma and I spent a lot of time riding around, watching how that water, you could literally see it pulsing
Yeah.
out of the
I think it's a
hills.
great idea, especially if you've
And
seen
it
it
goes
around.
all the way down to to Water Street, and all those poor houses down there have to deal with it.
And you,
I've ridden with Norm one time. He showed me some of these issues, and I walked that road, not frequently, but quite a bit.
Since the last time that we were down there, we found a pipe between John's and Sunny Mary Lou's, right, Sunny Monroe's Road. And there's a drainage system there. I haven't investigated the property line or talked to John to see who owns it. You know, it's definitely out of our right of way, maybe we should clean that out. And there's a pipe in the ground there that goes somewhere.
Yeah.
And we have let tons of water down it. Once we cleaned it out, drained his old field, or that piece of woods that floated, and got that cleaned out, and then we put a bottle of dye in it to find out where the water went, and we've never seen it. But it's going somewhere, it's not going over to the house. So it's relieving property out of that. I mean, I don't know how many days did your sump pump run this year? I would ask you what you're right here.
It runs in months.
Months, right? So there's a tremendous amount of water on that road. So we get the ditch on the other side deep enough where maybe it takes it off. It's not gonna take it off, because it's coming through the ground somewhere, because across from his house, it doesn't blow out of the bank. Where down the road across from the Monroe property, it actually blows over out of the bank.
Wow.
And behind the Hollow Hill property, there's a rock, it's like there's a hydrant turned out behind it. And, and again, now if we can get our ditch working and we know it works, then maybe we can take that and pipe that water past the Monroe ditch and continue it down through the street, and relieve a lot of that problem there on that road.
No, I think it's, gotta get done eventually.
Sarah and our teaching one.
Yeah.
Right, so there we are, and then, there's definitely some trees that we need to look at. To decide on how we're gonna eventually attack them with all the homeowners.
So when do you suggest that we have this meeting?
Well,
Or does anybody else have suggestions?
the official continuance, I'm not really sure, but next week or the rest of this week, get a hold of me and we'll take it right down.
I think it should
See
be done next week.
Next week,
Well,
okay.
unless we look at Thursday or Friday, I really would not want to do a continuance for, 10 to 12 days.
No.
Because I'd like to get this meeting closed out. Now, there is another thing that I think Norm is going to talk about next, there would be 3 things that we would look at least along here. And the third one would be the park.
Oh, yeah, that's the big one, yeah, well, yeah.
But it
We're all
matters because
set, yes.
it matters how we would spend money.
So the next one is, the village granted, some of that ARPA money, if I'm correctly mistaken. Got together with, MSK, they did kind of a conceptual plan in the park. Everybody was happy, they did a budget estimate. It came in 3 times their budget estimate, which is nowhere
That was
in
the
the realm
special
of the world. So we have spoken with a neighboring municipality, down in Bennington, and their parks department, and I believe, I saw an email today, I didn't read it, so I don't know, there's some trash guy.
So basically, Stu, we met with the Bennington folks. Great meeting, wonderful display or example of partnerships. But Mark, what's his name? Mark in Bennington suggested that we contact Stu Hurd and Jeannie Jenkins and ask for a meeting, because it wasn't his role alone to decide whether Bennington what projects they would do. So we did that. We had a meeting set up for Thursday, actually. And then this morning, Stu said that he has talked to their parks people, and he's happy with the discussions that they had with Norm. And so we are no longer meeting. So the next step is that Norm, Mark Boudreau, and the public can get to look and see what we do with that field and when. Norm has, and others, Norm's done a lot of work already, contacting different people and has some great ideas on how to redo that field at a much lower cost. The issue is that if Norm does that this year, these other projects don't get done. So, but I think it still is worth everybody knowing what it is and having Norm, you gotta go and see it, and having Norm explain why you're sitting there looking at it. Here's what we would do and why. The good news is ARPA funds, pardon me, are already designated. They need to be spent in full by the end of 2026. So that project, should we decide it can be pushed off, doesn't have to be done this year. But maybe there's ways to do it all, I don't know.
So this sounds like a couple of hours of a meeting, right, to visit
I
several
don't
different
think so. I
sites?
think it's gonna be a couple hours of your time, because you need to come with me, again, either just a couple of you at a time, and we'll go for the road trip. And then we can sit down and talk about everything. We'll probably be part of the last one, but, you know, again, Church Street, just go walk it. On your way tomorrow, grab a coffee, walk around the corner, right? It's 400 feet of sidewalk. I mean, it's not a big deal. You've seen us, we've done it all over town. That's a good idea. The only thing that starts us into, that pushes the field more is, one, grass grows great when it's dormant in the wintertime. And we're right to that year, and we have a good opportunity to have the correct person with the skill set that we need that will have the time available. In the spring, you know, that's another game. So.
So the possibility might be to get grass planted before the winter,
That would be the, yes.
and then it needs a year to,
Right, now we don't have to, you know, there's not big watering, there's not all that, you know,
right?
all that stuff that you gotta deal with constantly if you're trying to put a field in. The field, no matter what field it is, it will need a year to thrive. But.
And
So that's a very interesting point.
right, so if there are people who are already committed or who have already essentially signed on to the project that Norm and Mark have thought out. They're available this year. If we defer the project, you run the risk of those people not having the time if we wanted to do this same time next year. So
Right.
it is weighing pros and cons of a number of things on a number of projects. And they all interrelate.
Well, I can make time on Friday.
That's not good, that's bad.
Oh, that's Battle Day?
Yeah, that's a holiday for us, it's actually.
Okay.
We can look at-
Thursday might be tricky for me.
I could do midday Monday. I could do the weekend, Saturday.
No, but
Yeah,
Norm needs his weekend.
that's fair.
It's fair.
That's fair. I like it too, but
Monday,
I'm just saying.
midday Monday is a possibility.
Yeah,
Like noonish.
I would go with that.
Okay.
Monday the 19th.
I mean, if you do that, then we'll all go together.
Yes, and
19th?
we can.
Yeah.
We'll make it quick.
Because we're all there, is that a meeting then?
It is a meeting, but we're continuing
But you'll
this
have
meeting.
time.
And the date
because I think
certain,
it's
the date and time certain will be the 19th and whatever we pick. People can ride with Norm, or you can take your own car, and we'll just do the circuit. The spots we need to meet.
Where should we meet?
Well, let's get the date and time first.
Okay.
Monday, noon,
Monday, when you say midday, what do you say for time?
noon o'clock.
Noon o'clock, Monday noon, works for me, works for everybody else.
And where we
Matthew, are
meeting?
you gonna be able to do that?
We don't know yet.
I would not be able to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry,
That's all right.
okay. Well, at least there will be four of us,
You have 4 hours.
yes,
Yeah, we have a
and
call.
you are obviously welcome,
Thank you.
But I know you-
Definitely wouldn't be able to do that.
as is the whole rest of the public,
Is this one field?
yes. Okay,
So are we starting on Park and then
So-
going to Welling?
Yeah, yes, so again, your homework is to look at Church Street by yourself,
yes,
Yeah.
right? It's up, painted out, just looking at it and we'll meet, down at Park, across from the Monroe residence, and,
Which one is Monroe?
the yellow house.
Down.
Look for the truck with the flashing yellow lights.
Yeah, I'll
It'll be
see
there.
you. Okay.
Down towards River Road,
That is correct, just before the pavement. It's actually
just before the pavement.
the last two houses, the white one, which was House Hills, and I don't know who owns it now, and then Rose is on the other side of the street. It's past John's house.
Near the crab trees?
You'll see his vehicle.
Yeah.
It won't, it's not that big.
It's right
street.
there.
Okay.
We'll find you.
So Lori knows this meeting will be continued to Monday noon.
That's where we'll start.
We'll start at Park Street, and everyone ahead of
So
that has to,
if I
has
walk
to
up
go.
there, I can get a ride with someone.
yes, easily. But our homework is everyone must look at Church Street before that.
Okay.
Okay, Monday noon. Anything else?
No, I mean, we're just slowly, badly for summer, pretty much shot. It's just the way it is, school's starting, you can see we're painting, we painted today, we got the one little crosswalk, put down, loading, plenty of ways to get into this building without, that one entrance. We needed 15 minutes for the drive, so pretty much that's the conversation with the person on the other end of the phone. And I painted, so, we have stuff to do, we have our job to do. I can't make it not rain. And, the days that are perfect are slow. So we're well working on that, and we'll start going to, storm drains, cleaning, stuff like that, and obviously our lovely leaf season that I love so much, and, get ready for winter.
Rob?
I just want to say that we had, on the last meeting, we had some talk about the back street that was by the tracks. And Rich Jorgensen was thrilled that we gave him some time.
Yep, always send an email, that crosswalk's painted,
Yeah,
it's done, it's there. Actually, today I see people that were parking and not parking out.
Good.
Hey.
I did have a comment about, this will be good for bicyclists, and I was like, no, bicyclists don't belong on the sidewalk, you're on there, knock down, kick it with your foot, knock it in the traffic. That's where you belong,
Yep.
stay in the road.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
And then the guy who drove by the bike and never stopped for the stop sign, I said, there you go, right there, that's the route. Okay, and, I believe share the road, 100%. We got to share the road, everybody got to play with the same rules.
Yep.
But, just like everything, we try to work in the best of our ability within reasonable means, so.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that, Norm.
Yeah. We missed a public member when we started the meeting. You came in a couple of minutes late. Did you have something to add to the agenda or a public comment before we continue? Because we can adjust the agenda to fit your needs.
Yeah, we have a tree that needs to go down. Probably can't afford it.
I think all of us are apprised of that. And discussion is.
We're gonna deliberate on that at the end of the meeting in a session. But all the trustees are aware
Yeah.
of the issue.
Okay, just checking in to see if there was anything else.
But our rules of procedure are that the public has a few minutes to comment at each agenda item. So if we were moving on to another agenda item and someone had something to say, we want to make sure that people have that opportunity.
Okay. And then for Lori's sake, we also have Chris Damon.
Yeah, I have that.
Kim,
written
oh, you do?
down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, next on our agenda is the treasurer's report, review of the fiscal year 24 and year-end reports. Sir?
Okay. So everybody has a number of emails from me. Obviously, the main focus is to set the tax rate. All three of those attachments to that email all pertain to that, the report that's labeled annual report format, that has the fiscal year end of June 30th, 2024, with the variance from budget to actual, and then the approved budget for 24-25, which was voted and approved. That will then tie into the other two, which is the amount to be raised by taxes and then the rate history with the year-over-year comparison. The one that I will focus on is the one that is titled amount to be raised by taxes. Because like I said, everything kind of flows through that. So if anybody has any questions to start, then I'll answer them. If not, I'll kind of give another brief summary and then answer questions, and we can kind of go from there. Okay, hearing none.
Where is this line about amount to be raised?
It's not on that one.
Okay.
It's a separate attachment that is labeled 24-25 amount to be raised by taxes. It would be in that same email as a separate attachment. There was three or four attachments to that email. Okay. If you don't have it, Ray, let me know. I can show you this one after. So the expenses on the top, the revenue in the middle, which also contains the 23-24 fund balances, whether they be positive or negative, and then the grand list and the tax rate. I will start with the grand list because that's an easy conversation. The grand list as it sits right now, which according to the lister in Bennington is unlikely to change. It sits at $719,998. That is a less than $5,000 increase from the prior year. And again, as I noted, we are still likely about 2 years away from a reassessment. So that is what it is. Our fund balances, we had a negative fund balance in highway of $17,597, a negative fund balance in fire for $9,157, and a general fund balance positive of $103,440, sorry. In the email, there was the notes as to where all that shakes out. The highway, the largest portion of that, I'll go through this really quickly, was, as Norm was saying, some of the items, especially on paving that we had approved and paid out in June, would have likely not been done until the 24-25 fiscal year, but by having the paver already in town, we were able to get a better rate by doing more road work. So that's where the majority of that came from. The fire, there was a bill that was in dispute that ended up carrying over for repairs. That was, again, the bulk of that. And the positive fund balance is from the Overley Road grant, because as we have explained a couple of times, the majority of the expenses were paid in the prior 2 fiscal years, and then we got paid last fiscal year. So money had already been spent, and then we were reimbursed. And if you remember correctly, that was where the need for the tax anticipation note came, because we knew we weren't going to have that grant money until the following fiscal year. So now it came to fruition.
If I can comment, in
Yes.
other years, when we have a fund balance, we can often look at that and say, are there needs that were supposed to be done, but were not done? So we can carry that forward into the next year. Would not be right to do that in this year, because this is funds that were spent 2, if not 3 years prior. And so this reimbursement was not anticipated in setting those tax rates. So you can't really double dip and do it again.
Right. So the reason, again, that it's in the general is, as Mary just explained, it's not something that we would consider rolling forward, because the vast majority of that is from reimbursement of money that had already been spent. So as Mary and I looked through and talked through the current budget for the 24-25, we discussed some of the line items that may need to be adjusted at the trustee's discretion, which is allowed. So as noted, what we had talked about, Mary and I, and put forward for discussion was under general and government, was increasing that budget by 15,000. And that would be for audit / legal and depot repair. As we've talked about, we know we have to have a new audit provider, which that process is still ongoing, but we know it is going to be significantly higher than we've paid in the past. Depot repair, as Norm has told us, we know that there's going to be further repairs that are continuing for the depot. So by adjusting that, we could potentially not wipe out the reserves that are built up every year for the audit reserve and for the depot repair reserve. The fire suggesting 7,000, which again, building repair and utilities between oil, those types at the fire, the adjustments probably haven't quite been in line with inflation and fuel oil costs and things of that. Mary had suggested under Public Works, a dam and waterway, as discussed mainly at the last meeting. Work is likely going to need to be done to dams and waterways.
That dam by the fire station needs to be, White's Mill, thank you. That needs to be repaired. Norm thought he had approval from the water folks to do it when the water table dropped. Then at a subsequent time, he could tell you better than I, he kind of needed some additional level of approval or somebody's inspection, I can't recall. So that project did not get done in the last originally he thought that would be done in June, early July at the latest. I know there is somewhat of a quote or an estimate that Norm had on that. I want to say, my brain is saying it was about 5,000.
I was going to say, I think it's 5 to 6. Yep.
But you never know. I mean, it could easily be more. So we just rounded that up a little bit to
So
really, this is specifically, this line is specifically for that White's Mill dam. Yes.
I just make a point that if we had a flood and that retaining wall gave way, firehouse was flooded, 7 Prospect Street across the street was flooded, and Hadley's Privilege was flooded as a result of the failure of that retaining wall, FEMA would not pay flood insurance on that because it's deferred maintenance. So the trustees ought to seriously consider upgrading that.
That's why we wanted this in this budget, so that we would have the funds as soon as this year rolls in, we would roll in.
But the retaining wall, that's what I would call the dam there.
No, adjacent to the dam.
It's like
behind the fire station.
Okay.
There's a rock.
Okay.
And
I
then,
call it the dam too, but it's really
Okay.
not.
and then the last adjustment that we had discussed was under highway, and it would be primarily towards the retirement. With the change to VEMR's, there's going to be percentage changes with the highway department being in the VEMR's. So the budget was approved prior to that change, so we're just trying to keep up with that. So all that being,
Can I ask a question about the dam? Are we talking about a permanent line item? Because I think that's an excellent.
well, that would be the hopeful,
That's next budget.
right? So
This is
we,
only to set the tax rate.
right, so
I
this
see.
would go in for this budget.
Specific issue.
Correct. And
Okay.
then the following, it's going to be here before we know it, November, December, when we do the budget discussion, that's when it would be talked about if we're going to put in a specific line item moving forward for dams and waterways. This, if approved, would go specifically to that project, because that's the one that is
Okay,
been
that's fine.
discussed and needs to be looked
Because
at.
we have to be very mindful about not spending what residents and taxpayers have not approved. So that's why you always start with what was your approved budget? And we're only adjusting for those things that we absolutely know are going to happen, that we're not knowing at that point in time, that when the budget is done.
And so that being said, under the tax rate history, if we go with this as presented, the tax rates would be for highway, 0.6494, general would be 0.2142, and fire would be 0.1716. So our subtotal there would be 1.0352. And the biggest comparison where everybody would want to know is over the prior year, it is less than 7% increase. It would be 6.78 would be the increase from prior fiscal year to this fiscal year. And that was when Mary and I had all of our discussions, we were being very mindful to try to keep that increase as low as possible. And the 7-8% was going to be the cap that we would not bring anything to. And this is under the 7.
But we were not artificially manipulating. We were looking at only those things, only those items to add in addition to budget that was really truly going to happen.
Yep.
Or otherwise, next year would end up with a deficit.
With a deficit,
that we would have
right.
known about. So we're just trying to.
That's the biggest thing, is anything that I brought up and that Mary and I discussed were things that have been discussed at meetings,
Yes.
knowing coming forward. Again, the audit legal, the depot repair, the firehouse repair, the dam, waterway, which again, that's just what we're calling it for the purpose of this, and the retirement through the highway. So again, with everything that it sits from the prior year and the approved budget, it would be 6.78.
And I have to say.
Increase
Yeah.
over last year, right?
Yeah.
People have not done this work before. You have no idea the amount of work and the amount of analysis that Doug has to do. So I congratulate you and I thank you on behalf of all residents for putting in the diligence and the time that you have pouring over this. It is not easy.
And just for quick comparison's sake, the prior fiscal year was almost a 12% increase.
Yes.
And then the year before that was 6.45. So it's.
You're back to normal.
And last year
Exactly.
was an exceptional year.
There's a fire truck.
Yeah.
last year.
There were several
There were
large
many
items.
expenses.
Right.
That came through. And also a big part of that 12% was the not getting the grant money,
That's right.
because we had to wait the next fiscal year to get the reimbursement. So I would say probably in the 70 to 75% range of grant expenses were in that fiscal year, but we didn't get paid until this fiscal, like Mary was saying too. It was, if you trace it all the way back to the beginning, it was probably 3 fiscal years ago that project started, with the preliminary mapping and everything, and, engineering studies and all those types of things.
So the 103,000 really offset the increase.
The last
Yes.
2 almost. Exactly. Right. And if you talk about, just for comparison's sake, every indication your inflation is right now in the 3 to 4% range at best. So we're, if you figure that you got to go up a minimum of 3 to 4% to keep up with inflation, we're only 2 to 3% above that.
So this is what we're discussing, approving tonight.
So we need to set the tax rate. So those tax rates that I read off correspond with the prior discussion about where those all came from. So that is the vote that the trustees need to make, either to go with this recommended or make changes. and I have the spreadsheets available that we could make changes, but as Mary said, those items, there was nothing, there's no fluff there. You know, we're not looking at anything that we're saying, well, this could happen. We know these are going to be in this fiscal year.
And if we don't address them, we just put ourselves into a negative balance next year.
Right, because I think if I remember correctly, if I were to remove all of those items that we just discussed and went with the approved budget, it was right around a 2% increase from prior year. So it was going to be an increase no matter what way you slice the bread, so to speak.
Right.
When we look at the other items that we know are going to be coming up, that's not even to say the ones we don't know that are going to come up.
And some of these items may get more expensive if they're ignored.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something to be taken into consideration too.
Yes. And there's one more item, just to move the discussion along, there's one more item to discuss before we should take a vote on setting the tax rate. And I think you'll talk about that next, a small little.
The local share. Yeah, so the other item is typically, and Mary will be able to speak a little bit more to this, but the local share has been in existence for, we're not quite sure how long. It's a small tax rate that is offset some of the exemptions, and it is to basically try to take those exemptions and spread it along everybody to recoup some of those funds back under the taxes.
Can you state what the exemptions
Yes,
are?
it is a
Veterans.
it's a veterans exemption.
Right.
And the veterans can apply for a certain reduction of their grant list. And then that applies to their education taxes primarily.
Right.
So the village, probably for decades, has been one of the only municipalities that I know of that takes that exemption and has the rest of the tax base
Pony up.
basically.
Pay the cost.
It amounts to a couple of $1,000s a year. It's not much.
Right.
And then Doug can explain, not only are we different in that regard, but then it creates
So what
a different
happens?
hassle.
Yep, so what happens is, well, like Mary said, so first, Bennington and Shaftesbury don't do this. The veterans exemption is just there. Anybody who applies for it has it. And what it does then is it has two sets of reconciliation, because it's a separate line item. So it's another reconciliation that has to happen when all the tax money is collected and reconciled. I looked quickly, last year was $3,140. That was the amount. The year before was just under $3,000. And the rate, we don't really set the rate. The rate is this calculation that's done when the grand list is settled and the school tax rates are settled, and then it all flows together, and then there's a rate that's set. So it does fluctuate, not much. I mean, if I read off the last 2-3 years, it was 0044, 0069, 0046, and 0026. Those were the rates. So Mary's suggestion was that the trustees could vote to eliminate that local share. And
It makes the tax bill a little bit easier. It also makes the various school, the education tax reconciliations a lot easier. If the village really thinks that the couple of $1,000s is that material to the,
Which way does that work? Having the exemption makes the reconciliations easier?
no,
it's harder.
harder. You have to do
Because-
special reconciliations because we are the only municipality that is doing this.
So if you were to look at your,
But what would that not having this? If we did it the way Shaftesbury does, what happens to the impact on their tax rate?
so if you were to look at if you were to look at your tax bill in North Bennington and your tax bill in Bennington, that's the good comparison.
Yeah.
There's an extra line item on the North
Yeah.
Bennington bill that says
I've
local
seen it.
share, right? Bennington does not have that, Shaftesbury does not have that.
Okay.
So when number one, when the tax bills are created, it's a separate line item that has to go through.
Yeah.
If it's not there, that $3,000 just doesn't get collected.
Yes.
Okay.
So the amount to be raised by taxes is different by that. Well, it's again,
Yes.
yeah.
And that $3,000 eventually goes to the graded school district. If the trustees feel that that is a material difference, rather than burden the rest of the taxpayer, even though it's a minor burden, it's more of an annoyance, then I think the trustees can always come next budget, come up with something such as when we have our meetings, we rent the space, you know, or something concrete, if we feel that having that loss of a couple $1,000s is really material to the,
So it doesn't impact the school, it impacts the village.
it impacts the school,
Both.
both. Because the village needs to collect from all taxpayers what that small amount that veterans are not paying. So that that couple of $1,000s gets remitted to the graded school district
Yeah.
above and beyond the education tax rate.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
that is just plays havoc with reconciliations on the SU level.
Because when the budget through the SBSU is set, they don't use that local share number. They use the education rate from Montpelier.
But who eats the cost? That's not the school, but the village does, right? If you don't have the extra.
If you don't do it.
You just don't collect that revenue.
You just don't collect it, it just isn't there.
Right.
So your
Because it's not budgeted.
recommendation
But the
is
school
to,
still,
To delete it.
the school still receives what it needs to
The
receive.
school
Correct.
receives, yes, the school receives, this is like an extra little bonus.
So it's just that we show a little deficit in the village finances.
No,
No?
because the village has to collect it, it's only a deficit if it's a delinquency.
We still get it.
That's not. to
I
me,
think,
it's not
I think
fair.
Ray's question is, if we're still giving this discount to veterans and we eliminate the local share so that the taxpayers aren't paying it, where is the money coming from, or where is it taken from?
It
doesn't exist because it comes in every year because it has to be
So
billed
it's just a
every year.
It's
reduction
just
in
a
their tax
reduction
rate.
overall in what gets collected and what eventually gets remitted in education tax.
Okay, does that make more sense?
So it affects the school in terms of receipts.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying, if the trustees feel that that couple of $1,000s is all that material to the graded school district, I would propose there are other ways we can remedy that.
But I would say it's usually not an issue because we usually have a surplus.
Yes, so.
In
even
fact,
better.
we've never not had a surplus.
Even better.
And if it's that small amount,
Yeah.
it's not very.
It
marginal.
truly is more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna, unless there's more discussion, I'm gonna ask for a motion to eliminate the local share.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are you thinking right?
Then we can,
Okay,
Hold on.
unanimous.
Matt, were you in favor?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't see you. Okay, so the next,
vote on this.
so now we need to entertain a motion for the tax rates.
All right.
A question.
Yeah.
I believe that the state now permits municipalities to charge local tax for short-term rentals. Is that correct?
I don't know.
And I think it's a 1% tax. or
I do
something like
not
that.
know. I wonder if that needs to be included in the land use ordinance in order for that to be done. It's something we could look at. I don't know that any of us are knowledgeable about that here.
I feel like Bennington,
Go ahead, Matthew.
the Bennington,
Say that again. We only heard the beginning.
feel that Bennington opted for that already several years ago. And I don't know why we would not be.
Do you know, Kim, does Bennington charge it?
I do not know that.
Okay, so it sounds like something that we'll have to look into
Yeah.
to see, what it is, what we would need to do.
I remember you talking about it in the past and sending me some information about it, but I don't know if it's something that has to be enacted.
And I think
It probably does.
and in the new state law 180, Act 181, they call it. I think the municipality is again given some additional taxing authority.
Right, but you would probably have to approve it similar to the local tax, not on the property, but like Manchester charges the 1%.
Right, this is apart from.
Right, but it's probably similar to that, meaning it has to be
It's
approved and all those
Yes,
types
I
of,
think that's correct.
right, so the state is saying you can do this,
Yes,
then it's up to the municipalities to take the steps to do it.
that's right.
Right, we're part of Bennington, so if they take it, aren't we
No.
incorporated?
No, because
No.
we're separate.
Okay.
Right, we would have to have.
So
our own
they
for that.
can't tax short-term rentals in North Bennington.
All
So
right.
I think you have
I think
two,
we
two
need,
possible sources of income that we may need to explore.
Good.
okay. Are we done with that subject?
No, because.
No, we have to move. Okay.
We still need a motion and a vote.
Okay, are we sanguine and ready to make a motion on the new tax rates?
One more quick question.
Yes.
Do you happen to have the number of, pennies per hundred, if that's still a
That was
thing?
at the bottom.
That is
Evaluation?
That's
mill
what
rate.
those rates are.
It
That
is
was-
1.035. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
$1.03, 3.5 cents.
So,
That's so,
353.
yep, 1.0352, if approved as presented.
Times, for every $100
Did
evaluation.
something else?
$68 per 100.
what?
Down at the bottom, $68 per 100,000.
Oh, for $100,000, okay, I was going
Sometimes cell
$100.
reference it
Yeah.
doesn't
Well,
work.
That would be
These
horrendous.
numbers, it's rounding different, because these numbers are all the same, so if we vote.
But it's a dollar
These
per
numbers,
hundred.
yes.
Dollar,
Because
okay.
those are the ones that are in there.
So
But the
$68.
But that
Yes.
line item at the bottom just shows you on a larger scale what
Right.
it comes out to be.
Well,
So-
if you're ready,
So now I have one further question. I just want a quick review from Doug about, or Mary, but Doug's probably going to say that do this, the changes quickly that we are making to this budget.
Yep, you just want to recap again?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So under general government, it would be a $15,000 increase to be distributed amongst the audit legal line item and the depot line item.
Okay.
Fire department would be 7,000 divided between utilities and building repair.
Okay.
Public Works, it would technically be a new line item because we want to keep it its own, and that would be 8,000 for dam waterway work.
Okay.
And then under highway for the retirement line item, it would be an increase of 4,000.
All right. So that totals up what?
Let's see, so we,
34.
yep.
Yeah,
In there for you.
that's sort of a
I
large.
don't know honestly that we actually changed the budget because that was already voted and set. This is just simply setting a tax rate so that at the end of the year, receipts will offset expenses.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not actually line items.
Right, that's where it would go to.
Yes, but it is specifically designated.
It's not going to a general fund.
Yes.
Right.
Right. It would be the budget. So when I do that report, Ray, that you're looking at right now,
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't change the budgeted approved line, but we would have the notation that we have these funds that were designated by the trustees.
Okay.
So that's where those would go per se.
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Then
Does that answer your question, Ray?
More or less, I'm puzzling over exactly how these blocks of information will change, but I'll see it later.
I think it'll probably be on this side, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, Mary.
I would make a motion.
Yeah.
That we set a tax rate, a highway tax rate at 0.6494, that we set a general rate at 0.2142, and we set a rate for the fire department at 0.1716.
I'll second it.
Creating a total of 1.053.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you need water? Okay. Okay. Any further discussion?
Lori, you're muted.
Oh, Lori's got
You're
discussion.
muted though.
Actually, that's not the total, Matt, because the total would be 1.0352 if you took the local share away.
Right, and Mary and I were just looking because we have that, right, the total wasn't carrying. So we're approving those three rates as set, which will give us the correct total.
Correct, and that's what, I was just mentioning that to Matt because he had just stated a different total.
Thank you.
Yeah, that, right, the
0.006.
decimal point is the
So-
one that changed. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
If we sign this.
Are we
up-
done with that part? Yes, because I have a question about money.
Well, we
haven't voted
We
yet.
haven't finished the motion, but
Motion is on the table.
Right, that's why I asked
Seconded.
if you were finished. So when you finish, I'll ask my question.
okay.
perfect.
Just want to make sure we didn't move anything until you were, okay. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Lori, what's your question?
So my question has to do with the charging station at the depot.
Yeah,
It costs a lot of money, and I was wondering when that was gonna be recouped by the village, because it's only, helping a small number of people, and the village is paying for it. So I've been curious about that for a long time.
I can answer that.
Mary's gonna
I
answer.
can answer that. There will be a fee structure set for that by the end of September.
Did you catch that? Okay. Yep.
Thank
I remember
you.
that we got it for a couple of years and then a fee was supposed to be enacted after.
Yeah, I remember
So-
something about that, and I just couldn't remember exactly how it was structured.
Excellent.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
You have more what?
I still have more.
Yes.
What do you have?
Okay, so my last item of the day is the delinquent tax payment to the school. Currently, the way that the village pays the school taxes is by December 1st, so typically it's the last couple of days of November, first day of December. The village has two quote-unquote bills to pay, a bill for Mount Anthony and a bill for the North Bennington Graded School District, which is the taxes collected. Mount Anthony tax bill gets paid in full. The Graded School of North Bennington typically has been paid less outstanding delinquencies. Then every month as delinquencies are collected, that amount that is school collection goes to the school with the interest that is collected. That creates a monthly reconciliation between the village tax collector, who's myself, and the finance department at the SVSU. We are the only municipality that does it that way. Every other municipality that pays school taxes to SVSU pays both their elementary and their high school taxes in full. The village collects The delinquencies retains the interest. So that being said, the request from the school was made to have the Village of North Bennington go the same as the other municipalities.
This is the request from the SVSU.
Correct. They have requested us
That's
to do
not the
that.
school, but, okay.
Oh, sorry, the SVSU,
Yeah.
sorry. Because everything flows through the SVSU as far as reconciliations
Yeah.
and all of those items. So yes, it did
They'd
not.
like to
Thank you for the
simplify their
correction.
bookkeeping.
Correct. And it would simplify the bookkeeping on our end too. It is truly a two-way street.
Right.
The other piece of the puzzle that is kind of funky and would fall in line with what they're saying is, why are all the delinquencies being held from the North Bennington Graded School and not pro rata for the two? That would create a third reconciliation. So that's where it was. But
Per rata, what?
because the so if you pay Mount Anthony whole,
Yeah.
well, a portion of your delinquencies is for Mount Anthony
Yeah,
because
yeah.
your school pot is your school pot.
Yeah.
So you would truly have to break it down if you wanted to make it even across the board. So by paying both in full, it eliminates an extra reconciliation. So I did a 3-year history, and on December 1st, over the past 3 years, the amounts for delinquencies for just school was 34,700, 64,000, and then 101,800. By February 28th, so within 2 months of those collections, they had all dipped by more than half. So they were down to 18,200, 22.
That was several years you quoted.
3 years.
3 years.
3-year history.
And that's in the email, that's in Doug's email.
And then 44,000. So the point being, the majority of the delinquencies are collected within a 2-month period.
Yeah.
So the hardship to the village would be next to none to pay out the full amount to both Mount Anthony and the North Bennington Graded School District. Because also at that time is when the village is most flush with cash, obviously, because
Sure.
taxes have been collected.
Yeah.
So that being said, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but I would certainly be in favor of a motion.
So that then means that the village would collect delinquencies that came after that, and that would be retained.
Absolutely. Yep. So everything collected for
Yeah,
delinquencies.
I don't have a problem with that,
Yes.
because,
This
you
one
know, I got,
definitely helps.
school gets all the money it needs, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And again, it does make life simpler, and it brings us everybody.
Yeah, maybe.
I am totally in favor of this.
And the biggest difference from reconciliation is I have to reconcile delinquent taxes annually already. This forces me to do it monthly in addition to the annual one, because I have to reconcile every month in order to be able to pay the school their portion of the delinquencies. Whereas if we eliminate that, it's just one reconciliation for all delinquent taxes, which would be retained by the
All
village.
right, if you tell me that it's not going to hurt the village, I don't want to hurt the village.
No. Nope, because like I said,
There is an outside chance that it could crimp cash flow for. a
Yeah,
few
no,
months.
that's what I'm thinking.
It could.
Yeah.
But.
But we don't, you know, because between Mary, the predecessor, and Doug, the current treasurer, these delinquencies have gotten so de minimis relative to what they used to be. As long as we maintain that, I think things will be copacetic.
and that's the point, and that's where we look. And the trend, obviously, yes, the trend is that delinquencies have increased, but that's going to be the case. That's the case across all municipalities.
Yeah.
But the percentage basis of that collection those first couple of months is still very high.
Very high.
So it's not like that is dipping.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask for a motion because it seems like we're all on board for this.
I would happily make a motion to
I'll second.
pay education, tax rates. or
Delinquencies.
Pay education rates in full as the first reconciliation from the state suggests, and that any delinquencies are then retained 100% by the village.
And interest.
And interest.
And interest.
Well, right now, the interest is also passed along to the.
Yes.
Right, to the school.
Yes,
Yeah.
So
Now
now
it's-
you're gaining, village is actually gaining the interest.
Correct,
that is correct.
Gaining the interest, yes.
correct.
So we'll see how that impacts us in the near future. Okay,
So we
all
have a
in
motion.
favor?
Don't
Yeah,
need a
no, we
second.
have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, Ray's second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Is Matt,
He
Matt,
he thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
He's
Thank
good. I'm checking in.
Thank
Okay, we're falling behind. Let's see if trustee Molyneux has anything exciting to say about education taxes.
well, I don't think it's exciting, but I do think I ought to say it. I have a chart here that was prepared by Renee Gordon or her staff at the SVSU that shows the projected tax rate from our annual report in March and the actual tax rate once the legislature and the treasurer, the state treasurer worked out what the rate would be, what the yield would be on a dollar taxation, education taxation for properties. So, in the case of this village, we had projected we had the FY '24 tax rate was $1.61, so a rounded number. I'm not going to read all those figures. And the new projected rate in our, after all the adjustments made, is $1.67 and it's $1.6709. So that's a 3.8% increase over the previous year. This is in contrast to the hue and cry near and far in the media that there was a 14% increase statewide. Ours is not that. And none of the districts in the SVSU have that kind of rate except for Powell, which is close at 11.6% increase in their rate. And that was pretty much just due to probably their CLA investment.
So what's the increase?
3.8%.
3.8.
It's 7 cents roughly.
That's really good news.
Yeah.
Let me finish that because the whole point of that was I had asked for the original rate that was in the report. The original estimate in the report was about 1.73. So it's a considerable drop from several $100 increase in the yield. So I think that's good news.
It's great news.
Yeah. Thank you, Ray. Any discussion on that?
I think so.
No motions to be made? Okay. Fire department had nothing, water department had nothing, development review board is not meeting this month. Planning commission. Nominate Dan Delury as planning commission member. You want to talk about that?
Sure, he's a senior fellow at the Vermont Law School for Climate and Energy. And he has already contributed a great deal, even though he hasn't been formally nominated or finally approved by the trustees. So I would speak in support of that motion.
And I will also comment that the planning commission is short of members. Although I sit there, I'm a, whatever you call it, not a voting person. There's a term for it.
Ex officio.
Ex officio, yes. So there are members that are needed. Mr. Delury has attended meetings before. As Kim says, he has already contributed his vast knowledge. There is another resident who has indicated interest, and her name will be discussed at the next planning commission, and at the next meeting, her nomination will be brought up.
And would that bring you up to a full board? If you go.
We can go up.
We could
Oh,
go up
okay.
to 9, but
Okay.
it would at least bring the quorum up to something higher than what we need.
Okay,
So I'm happy to make that motion.
okay, and a second?
Second.
Whoop, too slow, Matthew. Scott, gotcha. Yeah,
Is the term 3 years?
the term 3 years,
I think we said that way, yes.
is that what yeah, he's not like taking a position that is shorter,
No,
existing?
it's not filling,
It's not.
Okay. For a term of 3 years.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, collaboration with Town of Bennington on cooling/warming shelter annexes to LEMP. Who's talking on that?
I can do that. We've had one meeting so far, and we are partnering with Bennington to add an annex to the local emergency management plan, LEMP, and looking for coordinated response to heating and cooling centers, which are necessary in extreme events. So for that to occur, we have to identify spaces. Right now, we have a shelter space available. Bennington has made cooling centers available through a private party, Kiwanis Club? One of the fraternities.
Wasn't it the
Elks.
Elks?
Elks. And had one other location, school. So that was relatively informally done in the past, and what they're trying to do is formalize and engage North Bennington and maybe Old Bennington, I'm not sure, but North Bennington definitely into the same organized approach to heating and cooling events. More people die in hot weather than any other weather event. So we're going to continue to focus on that through the planning commission and see what we can do. Mary and I were supposed to meet with the school head, the principal, Tim. That hasn't been set up.
Yeah, we're awaiting that.
So we will continue to meet and support those efforts. Additionally, the planning commission is working on the village plan. Obviously, that's our primary task, although we've been doing all this emergency management stuff on the plan. And we're through chapter 5 in terms of editing. The scenario for a tabletop exercise has been created and presented to a group, not the planning commission, but an emergency management group that I pulled together for this purpose. And that presentation was last week, and we came away with a consensus on a scenario that could be presented for a tabletop exercise sometime later. We thought later this year, but the regional head of the Vermont Energy Management Group has, her name is Tiger Christie, has intervened for us with the dam safety program and the Agency of Transportation concerning the dam. And they are willing to update their emergency management plan, emergency action plan, it's called, for the dam. And that should be done in advance of the tabletop exercise. So we would be only involved to the extent that we were trying to get this done. They're supposed to do it every 5 years. Last time they did it was 2011. They've missed 2 iterations. They have agreed to have a planning meeting with us. Our focus would be on the evacuation portion of it. Their focus would be on monitoring the dam and maintaining the dam and so forth. Remedying the dam because it's hydraulically insufficient. It cannot contain the necessary amount of water to prevent potential overtopping of the dam. So the tabletop exercise will now probably go into the winter or maybe later, depending on how quickly the Agency of Transportation can take on this responsibility of writing their emergency action. So that's where we stand.
And then just to comment, because of this work that Kim and Tyga have done, Kim has recommended that that letter that he drafted that we had discussed at the last meeting, and then Kim separated the 2 letters. The recommendation is, let's not send that until we see what the emergency action plan has addressed.
Right, because that letter was to get them to take on their responsibility for the dam, and it sounds like they are, through Tyler's intervention, trying to do that. Or at least saying so.
Yeah.
Any questions?
So it's happening, but like molasses in winter.
Well, I wrote an email today, I don't know if you saw that. The planning commission is willing to expend all necessary funds to buy Tyga a whip.
Wait,
Very
wait.
close to what?
To buy Tyga a whip.
You don't need to spend any, I have spares. Okay.
Still usable too.
Still usable, absolutely. Okay, anything else from the planning commission?
Yeah, I'm glad your letter in thought, they must have perceived the thought, so they diverted it. That was going to be dynamite.
Well,
Okay.
the bomb train issue, which was the second part of that letter, remains as an issue. Let's get through
Right, we had to pick one.
getting some action on the dam.
Yeah.
I don't know what the vote will be, but I did speak to one of the candidates, Will Greer.
Yes.
About this issue of bomb trains, and his father works for the railroad, he's very familiar with these issues. And is familiar with the situation at Mount Tabor, which is even worse than ours.
Oh.
So, I think if he was to win the election today, then potentially we have an advocate to champion these issues.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you for all of the work. All right, no old business
Yes,
unless, old
Yes, I
business?
do, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I didn't put it in here, but we do need to vote whether it's here, Lori can advise us better. We do need to affix a compensation for a tree warden.
Oh,
I put that in the email.
oh, okay.
And so my understanding on that, Mary, is that it would be similar to the trustees stipend.
The law states that if it is not otherwise affixed, it is equal to a trustee compensation. And
So
we can, I'm happy to go with that.
That's the law, and I don't think we need a motion for that. I think that
But we do need
budget.
a motion that we acknowledge that's what we're doing. Because it is not just, it's just, if you don't, you have to affix a compensation. And if you don't provide a difference otherwise, you name the same compensation as a trustee. So I think it just needs simply to say that there is such compensation acknowledged.
Has the tree warden had anything in the past?
No, it's never been, but this is a new law.
So we could just say, we could make a motion that the stipend as specified in the state statute is what
No.
will be. No?
I would
It's,
recommend,
it's not specified by number, it's specified by reference
Yes,
to it.
But Matt,
You think we have to say?
there are
Okay.
three tree wardens in the village right now,
Oh,
and,
there are three. Okay.
and I
no,
would
there can only be one. Matthew, there can only be one.
I think there's
One
a tree committee.
There's a tree committee. There can only be one warden. There can be deputy wardens, and they are not compensated under law.
thank you for that. So I believe Jeff Gray is deputy warden.
Jeffrey, yeah.
And I-
Jeff Gray has been appointed at, after the last, meeting, or might have been a couple of years ago. Interestingly enough, by statute, once a tree warden is appointed, they have that position until that tree warden decides they don't want to do it anymore.
Well, they-
Unlike any other appointments that have a specific
Lifetime
term.
appointment.
I'm
So-
trying to get in.
So I was the tree warden, and Short Aldrich passed away. And like that echo, I'm sorry, I apologize, but I think there needs to be some investigation as to who is the tree warden officially. If there is, can only be one.
Yes, there is only one.
I would recommend change that salary, that compensation at $10.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I didn't
$10
$10
compensation.
$10, what?
annually.
That's what he read.
Oh.
Annual compensation, $10 for the tree warden.
Well, I think, Matthew, and maybe this needs to be stated further under the new business, but I absolutely, as I sent an email out, we absolutely have to get together with the tree committee, and we have to come up with either a policy or an ordinance. That is aside from what we're talking about now. But I also sent out the duties of the tree warden. I think things are, by law now, perhaps a lot different. I don't know that the same compensation as a trustee is warranted when we're at this point in developing the role and responsibility of North Bennington's tree wardens. Perhaps at some point we would, but it is also the tree warden supposedly is the one that develops the recommendation to come back to the trustees. So I think there is a lot of work to be done in this area, but I just want to make sure that we're not in not at least acknowledging that a compensation should have been set. And whether it's $10 or $100 is not that material to me, other than having something set where we acknowledge that there is in fact a compensation for it, if I'm making sense.
Do we
Well-
know
Like to
how?
set the compensation at a later date?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we need a little more information. I'm curious to know how many hours our tree warden is working every month.
There's work for the tree warden and the committee to do, you're
Yes,
saying?
there's a ton of work.
Why don't we just leave it at that we will set it at a later date and for
Because we're already
consultation.
2 years late in setting a rate.
Yeah.
We can change a rate, but we should at least acknowledge that there is one, because
We can acknowledge that we will set a rate once we have
What if we set
Some information
$100 annual and then we find out more information?
That is what I would prefer. to
Okay.
see.
Okay, so let's say we'll set a rate at $100 annually, and when we have more information, we can change that.
That can be adjusted if need be,
Right,
but
So
I
moved.
think a rate needs to be set.
okay,
Second,
okay.
So you have Matt and Scott.
All right, so, yeah, Matt moved, Scott seconded, all in favor?
aye.
Aye. Excellent. Okay, I lost my
Sorry.
video. No. Okay, so that was old business, new business, review the changes to the personnel manual. That's all, Mary.
Again, as I sent out, there are there is a lot more work that could be done with this. Let me find my notes. Oh. Here it is. I will happily read, and I will provide these to Lori in writing. I will provide a summary of the changes in the personnel manual that I sent out to all of you a while ago. Here are those changes, and Lori, I will send these to you. Page 2 includes now the date of revision. Page 14, the pay period is bi-weekly for all. It was not so specified, it was a little, it was nebulous. It could have been a number of things. Page 16, our payment in lieu of insurance, it now includes the language that it is reported through payroll.
Got it.
Page 16 is the update to the retirement plan with the new Beamers. And that language you have read on what was previously sent out. Page 26 removes a redundant statement about the village participating in Social Security. Page 27 is the employee use of equipment, and it prohibited the employees using village equipment. I added language along with the water department secretary that it cannot be lent out. An employee cannot lend it to another person, not only themselves, but cannot lend it. Page 27, the telephone policy is revised because A, nobody charges for long distance calls anymore. And B, it also includes the use of computers and internet. That was some nice feedback from April Collin. Along with some of these others, I want to give her credit for that. Page 28, it reworded the drug and alcohol policy to include marijuana, which is no longer illegal, but you wouldn't want to be under the influence of that. And it's also on page 32. On page 29, there was something about discipline, and the third offense set forth in the language, so that was caught and changed, thanks to April. On page 35, the smoking policy now also includes vaping, and that's mentioned in a couple of places. What I'd like to do is see if we can have, hopefully everybody did read all of that came out. I would like a motion to accept the changes that are made there, but to further then, before the manual is finalized, to have a couple of people, perhaps, I think Norm would be happy to work with me on this, perhaps one other trustee. I will ask Steve Goodrich if he would appoint someone from the water department to go through this thing page by page. There is a lot of other stuff that could be updated from the decade or so ago that this was written. So, motion to, I'd like to have a motion to accept these here.
I'll make a
And then-
motion to accept the changes to the personnel manual
As written.
as written and presented.
Matt's giving a second.
Matt's our second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then just quickly, for one of you, if you could, to join me in working with a couple of people to go through this and really fine tune it. It could be Doug, it could be Lori, it could be any one of you, but I need help. Thank you.
Okay,
Was that
that was new business.
new business? Hold on.
Barring that,
The other new business was the discussion on the tree policy, and again, I will send out a separate email to the tree committee and to all of you to let's get together and really work on this. It is pretty confusing. I have done a lot of reading on other municipalities' ordinances, and we don't need one as detailed as somebody like Burlington would have, but the state writes these statutes, and then you gotta figure out what they really mean. And I sent a long document on frequently asked questions. That came out a couple years ago, I sent it at the time, so please read through those materials.
okay. Do we have an executive session tonight?
We do,
Okay.
and Norm.
He's on the phone, he's on Zoom.
Oh,
He's
good,
on Zoom.
Norm is gonna join us here. So the next thing is I would like to just enter a deliberative session to discuss some basically tree warden and tree work issues that have come up with residents. And I'd like to get an answer for our resident, or at least a partial answer for our resident.
We'll be making a motion after coming out.
I don't know.
Okay. So we'll just leave Kat hanging?
Yes.
Yep, I'll
I
put Cat
don't
TV in
know.
the waiting room once we go into executive then.
And I think we'll have to wait for, I would really rely on Lori's expertise when we get there, and also on Norm, but I do think we will vote for some sort of a letter to be drafted, as I indicated in the notes that I put in on that.
Okay. So can I get a motion to move into
So moved.
executive? And we will dismiss all of our citizens.
second.
Okay, thank you.
Press.
Okay, you're out of executive.
Okay, there were no motions made in our executive deliberation. We are going to take a motion to continue our meeting to August 19th at 12 o'clock. Can I, yeah, noon.
Do we want to name a location?
Yes.
On the south-ish end of Park Street. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
By Scott, and second?
Sorry.
By Ray. All in favor?
Aye.
See you on Monday.